IPCC reports supports police tactics during last year's protests, but admits errors and says there is room for improvement. First man charged with rioting over last year's protests is sent to jail. And LegCo president invokes powers to end Dennis Kwok's role as chair of the House committee.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Tonight, criticism for the Independent Police Complaints Council as its long-awaited report on the force's handling of last year's protests, sparked by the extradition bill, came out today.
In a nutshell, the IPCC fully supports the decisions made by police. Its report says police use of force and weapons during key protests was indispensable, reactive, and within acceptable limits. Haley Joe with tonight's top story.
A 1,000-page report on 6 key protests sparked by the extradition bill after 10 months of what it called a fact-finding exercise, not an investigation. It covers the clashes near the LegCo complex, the July 21st Yuen Long mob attack, the citywide clashes on August 31st, the day a female first respondent was shot in the eye with a projectile fired by the police, and the police storming of Prince Edward MTR station on August 31st. On the firing of tear gas near LegCo on June 12th, the report refuses to say whether it was proper or not, saying the level of force to be used depends on officers' own judgment and actual circumstances on the ground. Any officers found guilty of overstepping the law are subject to disciplinary or judicial process, but that's outside the scope of this study. On the July 21st Yuen Long mob attack, the report admitted there was room for improvement. But it said there was no collusion between the police and triads, saying the accusations were blatant propaganda with little or no factual basis. The report also backed the police actions inside MTR stations. It said the use of tear gas at Kwai Fong station did achieve the purpose of dispersing the violent protesters who had refused to leave the station. And closing Prince Edward MTR station was necessary so that the protesters could not escape. All in all, the report concluded the use of force by the police in the past months of protests has been in reaction to illegal actions by protesters and for protection of themselves and others when attacked by violent protesters.
I don't think that there is anything which is systemic as such, because the police does have all these systems. So I don't believe the police force as an institution, in fact, has fallen below what I would consider to be, in fact, sufficient systems of management and guidelines.
But it said the controversial San Ugling Holding Center, where the police are accused of abusing detainees, is indeed an inadequate facility as it has no surveillance cameras and proper interview rooms. The report recommended police specify under what conditions tear gas and pepper spray can be deployed and enhance safety guidelines on firing projectiles.
The report is quite professional. At the same time, one single report cannot solve the present issue.
This is not only disappointing, but it also fails Hong Kong people in general. The IPCC's report basically shifts the blame to rumors on the internet without paying attention to the fact that why did people have such consent in the first place?
Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam praised the IPCC's report, saying it was comprehensive and objective.
If anybody breaches the law, it is the duty of the police officers to enforce the law. So throughout these almost 1 year of social unrest, that is the primary duty of the Hong Kong police force. But of course, in the course of carrying out duties, given the very complicated and difficult circumstances, there were of course situations that could be handled better. There were of course deficiencies in communications, in staff deployment, and in other things as pointed out by the IPCC in its thematic report. So that is where we should find room for improvement.
A lifeguard who pled guilty to rioting in connection with last year's protests has been sentenced to 4 years in jail. Jackie Lin reports.
Sin Ka-ho is the first defendant to plead guilty to rioting since the anti-extradition movement unfolded. District Judge Amanda Woodcock said she believes the 22-year-old is sincerely remorseful, but she noted a riot has an immediate and serious impact to the rule of law and is punishable by 10 years behind bars, though capped at 7 years at the district court. Describing Sin as an active participant in the riot, she refused to accept the plea, including how it wasn't a premeditated crime and that Sin hadn't brought any weapons to the protests. In sentencing, Woodcock acknowledged Sin's young age and admission of guilt as a first-time offender and reduced his jail term by a third. After his sentencing, some people briefly surrounded the prison van carrying Sin while raising their hands, a symbol of solidarity among protesters. On June 12 last year, when the legislature was originally scheduled to scrutinize the controversial extradition amendment bill, police fired tear gas at the congregating crowd. After most people left, Sin was among those who remained. He was arrested after hurling umbrellas and other miscellaneous objects at police officers. 2 other charges which allege he resisted officers on the same day were kept on court file, meaning they cannot be pursued without the order of the district court or the Court of Appeal. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
LegCo President Andrew Leung has invoked his power to end the standoff in the House committee by appointing lawmaker Chan Kim-por to preside over election of the committee chairman.
As Dong Yao-ne reports, the move has sparked even more controversy.
A surprising move by LegCo President Andrew Leung to resolve the impasse in the House committee election.
I decided to specify the Honorable Chan Kim-por as the member presiding at an election of Housecom chairman at a Housecom meeting to be held at 11 a.m. next Monday.
The House committee, presided by lawmaker Dennis Kwok, has so far failed to elect a chairman in 70 meetings since last October. Leung says he made the decision after seeking legal advice, which suggested he invoke his power as president. Under Article 92 of LegCo's Rules of Procedure, it says the president shall decide any matter not provided for in the Rules of Procedure.
I must stress that my decision is made to address the exceptional difficulties.
He added that Chan Kim-por, a pro-Beijing lawmaker and chairman of the Finance Committee, has rich experience managing the complex affairs of a large-sized committee. Chan vowed to carry out his duties.
So I really hope that no one would be hurt on Monday.
Chan Kim-por says the president has tried to seek opinions from the pan-democratic side. The pro-democracy lawmakers have denied the statement, and they blasted the president for destroying LegCo's system.
If they say that is exceptional circumstances, there will be another exceptional circumstances.
It's absolutely unacceptable and groundless.
Dennis Kwok, who was replaced as House Committee Chair, challenged Chan's qualification.
And even if you want to remove Dennis Kwok, it should then go to the member with the highest precedent.
The pro-establishment side supported the president's decision.
The Honorable Chan Kim-por is a suitable choice for the chairman to appoint. Thank you.
Dong Yao-ne, TVB News.
Local health authorities reported another new case of COVID-19, bringing the city's tally to 1,052. Kana Chu reports.
The city's latest coronavirus infection is a 43-year-old man who is in a relationship with another patient who was earlier diagnosed. Authorities believe he likely got infected in Europe before passing it on to his girlfriend.
His onset of symptom was while he was in France, and he only stayed for 1 or 2 days in Hong Kong at that time.
On March 15th, the pilot returned to Hong Kong from London, meeting his girlfriend before leaving for France the next day. Prior to that, he had been in the United States and France. On March 16th and 17th, he suffered from a high temperature, which subsided on its own. After a week later, his girlfriend in Hong Kong began feeling unwell, only to be confirmed with COVID-19 on April 1st. The man may have been a source of the disease, but authorities say he had tested negative in mid-April.
So he went back to Hong Kong at end of March, 31st of March, and he self-isolated himself at home for quite a long period, for more than 3 weeks.
Fast forward to Wednesday, the patient was admitted to North Lantau Hospital after hurting his finger while out on the island.
The hospital has now arranged for a cleansing up of his ward. So far, we haven't got any patients or colleagues who will be deemed as close contacts of this person.
He was later transferred to Princess Margaret Hospital following positive coronavirus test results. He is asymptomatic and has a low viral load. Kana Chu, TVB News.
China has gone a month without announcing any new deaths from the coronavirus and has fewer than 100 patients in treatment for COVID-19. The National Health Commission reported 4 new cases today, all local cross-infections in the northeastern province of Jilin, where a cluster of uncertain origin has been detected in recent days. The last day the commission reported a death was on April 14th. Just 91 people remain in treatment for COVID-19 and 623 others are in isolation for being suspected cases or for having tested positive without showing symptoms. In total, China has reported 4,633 deaths among 82,933 cases since the virus was first detected late last year in the central city of Wuhan.
China's national economy is slowly returning to normal as production resumes amid the easing of coronavirus restrictions in various parts of the country. Industrial output rose 3.9% in April year on year, the first increase since the COVID-19 outbreak. That's up from a 1.1% contraction in March. The mainland has gone a month without announcing any new deaths. The country has maintained social distancing and bans foreigners from entering the country. But it has increasingly allowed factories and businesses to reopen and resume production.
Still ahead on tonight's news. Controversial history exam question on Japan's role in China invalidated by education authorities. Cathay warns of bleak outlook amid the pandemic.
Welcome back. The Education Bureau has decided to invalidate a controversial exam question in a DSC history paper, which asked whether Japan did more good than harm to China during the first half of the 20th century.
The materials that it is presenting for the students to comment, we think is one-sided. And I think it will hurt many of our people, both in the mainland and also in Hong Kong. The design of the question also have some problems. It does not conform with our curriculum, and it does not allow, it will likely mislead some of the students in their replies, in their answers.
The Office of the Commissioner of the Foreign Ministry has become the latest entity to criticize the exam question. It said education shouldn't be left unreined, likening it to a chicken coop without a flap. The Hong Kong Examination and Assessment Authority expressed deep regret and says it will follow up on the matter seriously.
Revised government data shows Hong Kong's recession deepened in the first quarter of 2020. The economy contracted by 8.9% in the first quarter compared with the same period last year. The decline is the steepest on record for a single quarter. The seasonally adjusted unemployment rate soared to 4.2%, the highest in more than 9 years. The government is hoping the city's economy will improve gradually in the second half of the year. That's if the local coronavirus outbreak remains contained and the territory's trading partners are successful in reopening their economies.
Cathay Pacific says its financial outlook continues to be very bleak. The Hong Kong's main airline expects it will take a few years for international travel demand to return to pre-COVID-19 levels. Last month, Cathay Pacific and Cathay Dragon carried less than 14,000 passengers, a 99.6% slump compared with April 2019. Cathay expects passenger numbers in May to remain at a daily average of about 500. That's compared to an average daily number of 100,000 before the full impact of the pandemic. The airline hopes to raise its passenger flight capacity from 3 to 5% in June.
Well, elsewhere, restaurants, cafes, bars, and public swimming pools opened in Australia's most populous state after a 2-month lockdown.
Australia's Prime Minister hopes the lifting of some COVID-19 restrictions will help get the economy back on track. Leslie Tang has more.
Australians in the state of New South Wales took the plunge in relishing their newfound freedom. Public swimming pools and beaches opened following a 2-month nationwide lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. Cafes, bars, and restaurants have also reopened. Public gatherings are limited to 10 people, while 5 can visit private households.
It is such a treat, I can't tell you, to be able to sit down, other people around, chat to my friend, and just have a normal morning, really, not hide away in my home.
Under Australia's federal system, leaders across the country are rolling out different timetables to lift their lockdowns.
Easing restrictions have failed in so many places around the world. I don't want that to fail in New South Wales. I want all of us to take personal responsibility in the way in which we respond to the restrictions. Let's please do our part in keeping everybody safe so that all of us can keep moving forward so that we never ever go backwards. That's really, really critical.
The lifting of virus lockdown measures comes a day after a report of record high job losses. It's hoped opening doors will help breathe back life into local businesses. Prime Minister Scott Morrison is hoping the bulk of restrictions will be a thing of the past by July. Australia has recorded just over 7,000 COVID-19 cases and just under 100 deaths. Leslie Tang, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.